Hi, this is Barrie, and welcome to the Audiowavecafe podcast. My guest on this episode is Martin Bowes. We'll be talking about Attrition, his darkwave industrial band, and his recording studio, The Cage. Martin's one interesting guy, check it out. And the topic in this episode is music cassettes, why they refuse to die off gracefully. And I shine a spotlight on the General Wolfe, Coventry's much missed music venue. A quick check around my house and garage has revealed some surprises. Just how many cassette tapes I still have lying around, some in plain sight, others ignored in shoe boxes and old Tesco's bags, relegated to the loft. They are mostly TDKs and Sonys. Why am I hanging on to these things? I have no idea. I mean, I still have a cassette player, but I just don't use it. On a subconscious level, maybe I just can't let go. And it's not just me. There's a quiet revival going on. Cassette tapes are back. 20 years after CDs put their final nail in its analogue coffin, when production of cassettes came to an end in 2002. CDs not only sounded better, they looked cool. There was no contest. Although still very much a niche market, sales of cassette tapes have been increasing year on year since 2015. It's artists and bands like Billie Eilish and Queen that have driven interest in this old technology. They have found buying cassettes in bulk is significantly cheaper than vinyl, and it's so much quicker to produce the finished product. In the UK, 185,000 cassette tapes were sold in 2021, an increase of 20% on the previous year. New fans of cassette tapes love the physical connection of owning an album in cassette form. Being on the fringes of mainstream tastes, cassette tapes are seen as quirky with a perceived rarity value. In 2016, one of my old bandmates came across a box of cassette tapes. They had been recorded on a 4-track cassette recorder almost 40 years ago. The tapes sounded dull and lifeless, so I had them processed and restored using Steinberg's Wavelab 7. Then the songs were put on CD. The results were amazing. Wavelab 7 was expensive at the time, but there are cheaper alternatives that can do a good job of revitalising your old cassette tapes. And if you are interested in buying a Walkman type cassette player, you can buy those cheaply too. And if occasionally you start sweating with digital withdrawal symptoms, your new cassette player will most likely be able to convert your tapes to MP3s. You can't lose. Today's guest is Martin Bowes, founder of Coventry darkwave industrial band Attrition. He's a composer and music producer with his own active recording studio, The Cage. Hi Martin, it's great to have you join me.
Hi Ray, it's good to be here.
Martin, what was the inspiration behind forming Attrition?
I suppose originally it was punk rock, that blew me away in hearing the Sex Pistols and seeing all the bands in the late 70s. And that inspired me to do music. Before and during that period, I was basically an art student. I was painting and I was rubbish at music. I had to drop it at school. I've got a report. I've put it on Facebook saying that Martin struggles with music from my school, which was Finnan Park in Coventry. Funny because I've probably released more albums than anyone that's ever been there, but I did struggle with that kind of music when it was like all just old notation and stuff. But yeah, so I got into doing it inspired by punk. But first, because I still don't think of myself as a musician. So I sort of came at it sideways. So I decided to do a music fanzine, and write about the local music scene in Coventry. So this was 1979. I started Alternative Sounds, and obviously it was a boom time for music here because you'd got a lot of the bands influenced by punk, and then you got bands like the Specials and Selector and Two Tone. So there was a lot of interest. It was a good time. So, and possibly also helped by my fanzine because it did quite well. So I did that for 18 issues until 1981. And so eventually, I just had to have a go at doing my own music. They say a lot of writers, music journalists are frustrated musicians anyway. But I already knew I wanted to do that. So I started Attrition right at the end of 1980. I think I just did one more fanzine after that. It just became too much to do both, and I'd moved on. So that's when we started. First gig was December 1980.
Right. Is it just me? I can't seem to find any band members' names on your website. Are they people you just bring in randomly to record and tour, or is it just you?
I bring people in. It's rare that it's just me. There might be the odd ambient track. But originally it started, and the main lineup for a few years was me and Ashley and his sister Julia, and we were the three of us. And we did the first couple of albums and shows around the UK, and then in 84, the first records were 83, 84, and then we toured in Holland and Switzerland as well that year. So that was a lineup that was quite regular, but eventually it just fell apart of the commitments from other people. And I just started to do more myself, especially when I got a computer, which that wasn't till 89, but just so I could program, and because I can't play anything really. I can play machines, but so that helped. And then, so what I've done for years is, I'll get the songs started, or the pieces. Sometimes it's soundtrack music, and then I'll bring in other people. And over the years, it's been vocalists, guitarists, violin, cello, piano, all sorts really. So I'll do that on the record. There'll be there could be a lot of people on an album on different tracks, and now it's from all over the world. It's so easy to send what you're working on, like bang an MP3 over or something, and then they can line it up and add some parts, and then I'll chop them all up. So I do a lot of that. It's like I did with my art, really, like montage and collage. Really, it's doing that with sound. So I do that, and then live, there's usually 3 of us on stage. Occasionally it's been 4, and that varies. But a lot of the same people come back, and do another tour with me and what have you. So that's why there's not like a regular lineup.
I've read that you've played in Russia.
Yeah, I'm not going back. I've played twice. We did a tour in 2008, and we did quite a bit. I went out all the way to Siberia on the Trans-Siberian Express.
Oh, good grief.
Drinking cheap vodka from the train guard who used to sell it really cheap. that kept you going for 3 days overnight on a sleeper train. We did that. We did a few. I think we did 6 shows because it was January. I went to Siberia in January. That's crazy. But they said it was quite mild. I think it was only -25. Actually, they have to say they're good at keeping things warm, and their trains don't stop when there's a little bit of snow. So they're good at that. And then we went back as well in 2010 and did a couple more. But and played Ukraine as well.
I may be wrong. I didn't think a lot of bands from the USA or the UK went over to Russia to perform. But you did. Just what was the attraction?
A few do, actually. I know quite a few. But we played originally. We started playing in Poland, because obviously once the Iron Curtain had fallen temporarily, as it seems, then we started doing places like a lot of the Eastern countries, actually. But Poland we did, and we played a festival that got quite popular called Castle Party, which was literally in a castle on a bit of a hill above a village. It looked like it could be off a Frankenstein movie or something. It was great. So we played then. A Russian label saw us because you got a lot of Russians come into it as well, as it's not so far. And then we released an album in Russia. Like they licensed the current one that we'd done. And then they sorted out a tour for us, so that's how that started. I've had about 5 albums out on Russian labels, actually. So, yeah. And a lot of apart from the band, call it my day job if you like, is working in this studio, so in my attic. And I'll do a lot of mastering or production for other bands and labels. So, and I've worked with a lot of Russian and Ukrainian ones as well.
I find it interesting that you've been involved in film scores.
Yeah, only not on a big level. I did. I did some short films. People had done, a short 10, 20-minute films, and I did some music for that. And then there was a horror film in America. Again, it's just an indie film, and I did the soundtrack for that, the full score, which we edited and put on CD. That was 10 years ago, actually. And then we played it live, so we got to play it in Germany and Canada. I've done it, UK, and the best thing was we've got to play it in Transylvania.
Transylvania.
Yeah, we played a festival in the mountains of Transylvania, and we did the horror film score. Which, when I was 14 and I read Dracula, I remember I always loved. I mean, I used to love all the Hammer horror films. And then I read Dracula, and I thought, I wish I could have gone back to my 14-year-old self and told him that he's going to be playing a horror film soundtrack in Transylvania. I don't think I'd have believed it. But that was 2018, so not that long ago.
In what way did you contribute to the development of industrial music in the UK?
I don't know.
I read it on your website or somewhere.
Yeah, people say it. Yeah, I don't say these things. Although I was really inspired by punk, but when we started, I was much more influenced, I would say, by the post-punk. So from Joy Division to Cabaret Voltaire for the electronics, and bands like Magazine and Pill, and also that sound was more what influenced the band. So, and then after that, we became more experimental. We just started buying synths and doing weird stuff. I didn't used to think it was weird at the time, but now when I listen to it, I can see it didn't go down very well in little pubs in Northampton or Coventry or something. So, or rugby we played once actually, but at the college in Rugby. That's the only time I've played there.
You've done the General Wolfe.
Yes, a few times actually. We got some photos and a bit of a live recording from that. So that, I live near there now, actually, not far. So we did get involved with that, and there was a whole scene in the early 80s. There was a column in Sounds Sounds, the music press, which is long gone, isn't it? People won't know it now. But there was a guy called Dave Henderson was writing a regular column called Wild Planet, and it was all the new experimental and electronic bands that were coming out in the UK. So we were part of that. So we definitely we were part of it. People say we influenced them, but I don't know who I've influenced. It's just, I know it has.
Did you enjoy touring, or would you rather have been crafting music in the studio?
I actually like both. About 50, I'd say maybe it's 50-50. Probably when I've come back, we used to do a lot of US tours for 6 weeks at a time. And it was kind of nice to come back to the studio, but then you get itchy feet and you want to go out again. I like both. I totally like both, but I really do. I've played in 4 continents. Been to South America, New Zealand, Japan, all of Europe. It's been a big part of my life, so I would definitely love the travel. I've always loved traveling. But also, yes, I love being in the studio and messing about, producing on electronic instruments and what have you. Yeah, I think it's good. I think you need to love both, really.
I think a lot of musicians could learn from Attrition's website about how to set up an effective band website. I'm particularly impressed with your press promo pack. Is there any tips you could give to musicians that want to promote their band?
Right, yeah. Well, first of all, I have to give credit to Alia, who designed the website, the new one, which was last year, I think. It's not been up that long. And the old one was from 2000. It was really out of date and not working. And, they eventually... So it was long overdue. So it's not like I haven't had that website for that long. But it did incorporate things that were in the old one, but just in a much better way and graphically, and works on your phone and all this sort of thing. I think bands, to some extent, once social media came up, you started having bands that would just use MySpace originally page or Facebook, and they're good. You have to have those, but don't rely on them always. I would say bands have to have a website, and I think it's come back a lot as well. I think bands are, because there's so many different changes in social media all the time that you need to have your own site that is the permanent, the place to go to find out. We have a Bandcamp site, which I think every band needs to have now, and it says that where you've had hits from, and there's always a lot come from my website. The clicks that have come through, so it shows how important it is. I'm very basic at designing my own, so I just update it. I can do the news. I put the news. I put a new picture up. I just do all that, keep it running. But I think if you're in a band and you haven't done it, then just get someone. And that was done with a program called WordPress, which kind of makes it easier. A lot of the things are done as templates, and and it's updated regularly. So that's what we had that.
There's an interesting story behind the album Millions of the Mouthless Dead. Could you tell me about it?
That was in 2015 that came out, and it's an album from I'll say all sides, but yeah, it is. There was German, French, British, Canadian. I did that because in fact, Attrition, the name of the band, comes from War of Attrition. And it was because my granddad was in the First World War, which was always called a war of attrition because of the gradual loss of both, wearing away and loss of the people on both sides, actually, and sort of through stagnation and nothing changing. So that's where it came from. So I'd always had this fascination with my granddad and him being in the war. He was wounded at Ypres in Belgium in 1917. I think he was about 18 or something, or maybe 19. That's how old they were. And we've got, I haven't personally, but in the family, there's postcards he sent from the front line, and some of them had pictures, and some of them were photos of him and his friends, in their uniform, always smoking a cigarette. They used to be good for you back then. I think when you're in the First World War, you don't care about having a cigarette.
No.
But so there's that. We always had those. In fact, they've even got the shrapnel bit that they took out of him, wrapped up somewhere.
Right.
So there's always a fascination with it. So I want, and of course it was the 100-year anniversary, like 2014 to 18. So I did this album, and I did it with Annie Hogan, who's piano player, and more than that. But she I've got to know her a few years ago after mastering some of her work. But she used to work with Mark Almond, did Mark and the Mambas. They were quite popular in the 80s. Yeah. She's worked with everybody, actually. So it was great to do that album with her. So that came out, it's 7 years ago now. But yeah, and then we included reprints of the postcards and inside the package, which was lovely.
What made you want to set up your own recording studio?
In fact, when I first started, it was 81. I just saved up all my money and I bought one of the little 4-track Porter studios, where they had a cassette, where they were really popular back in the 80s. And now it's generally digital. But yeah, so I bought that, and I bought a synth, I had a Wasp, and an 808 drum machine, which was quite expensive even then. Sort of with the others in the band, we got our little setup, and so we recorded our first, particularly as we got into synths. So we did less gigs actually after a while, and we got into just recording for a while. So we started off like that, but then once the first album was done like that, and mixed actually we just mixed it at the local studio in Coventry, Cabin. That was popular here for years. So we did that, and then gradually then we went to bigger studios in the UK, and then we did some in Brussels because we were on a Belgium label. So we just gradually we started going to studios, and then the early tracks were more seen with, usually for demos. I used to use my 4-track for demos. But then eventually I realised that all our money was going to studios, and there was never really much left after that. And I thought, well, I love recording, so if I put money into starting my own studio, I can not only then have that income, but also I could work on other bands, remixes and recording, whatever. So, which is what happened. So that was 93 was the first time I did my first album in my new studio, which was called The Cage, after one of the songs on that album, it was called The Hidden Agenda, that album, Attrition. So that's how it started. And funny, because having set up a studio, it was still in a spare room at home. I got asked to teach all that at the college, Coventry, Tile Hill College then, and then it became City College. So I set up a course there with another guy. So I was doing that. That was a really proper job. But I did that because my daughter had been born, and I thought I should have the regular income for a bit. The course, it was music technology. So you'd go, and there was eventually lots of different classes, and so it was a BTEC. So you'd go and then later an HND as well, and evening classes, and so you just go and learn how to record music on a computer or in a studio. And so basically what I was doing. So I did that for 16 years, part-time, so I can still tour and record and stuff. But yeah, that was all right. It meant I could buy a house because I had a proper job. They don't like musicians buying houses.
Oh, right. On the Cage website, it says you do private tuition. Is that recording techniques?
Yeah, I haven't actually done it for a long time, but after I left the college, which was 2011, and that's when I went full-time here with the studio, and I put more money in and got it all, got my converted attic as well. So it's all soundproofed and what have you. I don't know if the neighbours would agree, but yeah, I've never had a complaint. So yeah, I did that, and I did still. In fact, the college couldn't teach people some of the things I did because basically the college just started to not fund the music technology. So that's why I left. But they used to send people to me that they couldn't teach because they didn't know it enough. So they'd send them to me privately. So I did that for a bit, and then had other people around. But so it was just, sometimes I'd just help. I'd teach people by helping mix their songs, really. So it seemed like a good way to do it because they got a mix as well at the end of it. And, but I'd go through what I was doing and they'd learn. So I did that. I mean, I might do it again, but I just haven't really done much of that lately.
Are there any interesting projects you are involved with this year?
Yeah, well, it's been weird, hasn't it, with COVID, that everything was. That's probably a good reason why I haven't had people round actually to teach. I just realised because I didn't have anyone round for the best part of 2 years. I think one person came and did some vocals or something. So yeah, I'm back into things. I mean, the great thing is that I've started to do some live shows again. So we started in last September. We played in Coventry at the Tin Music and Arts place on the Canal Basin, which is very near where I live, so that's handy. We did that, and then we went to Whitby, and then we did another Coventry one, and I played in London in March. Sadly, the last two have been memorials to my ex-wife, Kerry, who died in January. So that's been a bit bad. That sort of just came back after COVID, and then that sort of knocked me out sideways. But yeah, so we've still got on. You know, we'd got divorced in September, and she wasn't well. But yeah, so that's it. But I've done a couple of memorial shows where I've played the horror soundtrack we'd written together 10 years ago. So I performed the soundtrack and with a bit of film with a tribute to her. So I've just done a couple of those, and that was nice to do. That was. So I've done that, and then I'm finally finishing the new album, the new Attrition album. It's called The Black Mariah. For a lot of people, it just sounds gothic, but for anyone from Britain that's a bit older, they know what it means. It's the old police van. Yeah, it sounds very gothic, doesn't it?
It does, yeah.
Anyway, it was suitable. So that's the name of the album. And that's well delayed. I put out The Great Derailer is actually off. You mentioned that, and that was a single off the upcoming album, and that came out just over 2 years ago, 2020. But then obviously everything went a bit wrong with COVID, and I did lose a lot of inspiration, and I was stuck on my own. I couldn't really get a band together easily, and it was just a bit of a weird time. So I'm back on track. So that's good.
Okay, you're going to complete an album. So what happens next? Do you come up with a video or something?
Yeah, well, I have done now, because it's something that you can do a lot. I mean, obviously they used to cost a fortune, didn't they, to make videos, and we never did any back in the 80s or 90s. There might have been some live ones in the 90s. So now you can, and I made my first video last year for another song that's going to be on the album called The Alibi. And I did that. I filmed it in my house. I've always kind of missed doing art, actually. And I was thinking of painting. And then I thought, no, I should learn a bit about video making and editing. And I'd just done very basic stuff before. So that's one of the things I did. So, yeah, it's good. I think it's important to have a video now. It's you can do it. It doesn't, even if it costs a bit of money, it doesn't cost much. And it's something that's really important to promote what you're doing. And you've just got to use everything, really. So I do. And I think when the album's done, I think there'll be another, for when it comes out, I think I'll do another track as a single and do a video, even if it's just a digital one. But I'm going to do the album on vinyl and CD and I think cassette, because I just think that'd be good. But yeah, so I'll do all that. I'll do it myself, actually, and then go and get it to distributors and things.
So you have distributors for all your stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I often license. So I might do an album where I'll do a one-off deal with a label and I'll license to them. And then they obviously do that. And I've just actually done one. There's a vinyl collection that came out last month and it called A Great Desire. And it's basically, it's partly for the 40th anniversary, which was smack in the middle of COVID. So that all those plans got wrecked. You know, I was planning all these gigs and things. But yeah, there's a vinyl album, which is a collection of 80s and 90s tracks. Mostly didn't appear late 80s and into the 90s. And they were that was really the CD era. So most of them haven't been on vinyl. So that's come out on an American label called Sleepers Records in Los Angeles. So that's come, I've been like promoting that. And so sometimes I do things like that, and then other times I'll actually just press them myself and release and sell as many as I can. It's never enough. But yeah, and I've got all the streaming I sorted out, so I've got everything through a good distributor. And despite people seem to moan about it, I think it's really good. I think it's, extra airplay and, regular income every month from it. So I'm not complaining.
Well, that about wraps it up. Martin, thanks very much for being my guest. It's been a real pleasure.
Thank you, Ray. Yeah, it was a pleasure to be on.
The General Wolfe pub closed its doors in 2011, later reopening as a restaurant. It unfortunately followed many live music pubs in Coventry that would disappear over the years. In its time it hosted rock and roll bands in the 50s and beat groups in the 60s. It was Ken Brown in the 70s who brought it to national prominence by attracting the likes of the Eurythmics, Robert Plant, U2, Marillion and so many more. But I remember the Wolfe as a local music venue that was part of a circuit of pubs that encouraged local musicians like the Navigation Inn and the Weaver's Arms. And Ken Brown did his bit. Bands were free to practice at the pub and some later hit the charts, like King and the Specials. Sometime in the early 80s my band recalled giving Ken Brown a demo cassette of some of our songs. He listened to them and then said, "I'll book you, but what genre are you?" We replied, "We're a guitar band playing original material. We don't want to pigeonhole ourselves." "That as may be," he said, "but you have to be punk or new wave." We sensed we wouldn't get booked without giving Ken the right answer, so grudgingly we went on as a new wave band. Perhaps we should have called ourselves the Reluctant Stereotypes. We were so lucky back then and we didn't know it. Coventry's many music venues included social clubs and nightclubs and a host of pubs, just like the General Wolfe, and they are never coming back. Coming up is a song by Attrition recorded at the Cage Recording Studio in 2013, with production and mastering by Martin Bowes, Tylene, female vocals, Ian Arkley guitar, Joanna Daly violins, and Martin Bowes electronics, vocals and lyrics. One Horse Rider.
Those about to die, lighten up, and those into survival, frighten us. Damn this one horse rider, damn this one horse rider. Damn this one horse rider. Damn this one horse rider. Man traps restricted diners. Trip them up. Laid back with Sunday drivers.
That was One Horse Rider by Attrition, and many thanks to my guest Martin Bowes. On Sunday the 15th of May, I'll be releasing episode 5 of the Audiowave podcast, where my guest will be John Hewitt, perhaps better known as the one-time drummer of King, one of Coventry's top 80s bands. As well as a look into his past music career, John will be telling me about what he's up to now. I'll also be talking about NFTs, what are they, and are they any use to you? I'll also shine a spotlight on the original school of rock. I think that's it. Yep, I'm done. Till next time.